And a very good morning to you. Welcome to K24 This Morning as we look at the big stories of the day. As always, we welcome your views as well on the big stories. You can get us on Twitter at K24 TV. You can also SMS us, our SMS line 21222. As always, let's set the stage and look at the front pages of each of the dailies before we start. Start off with the People Daily's front page. Why Mount Kenya region is 2022 political bride. In terms of the succession, the handshake between the president and former Premier Raila calmed country's toxic political climate and turned area hitherto seen as Ruto's stronghold in quest for State House race into an open arena. That's what the People Daily is leading with this morning. We move on now to the Standard. Front page of the Standard, 1,000 cases risk collapse in evidence war. Fight to stop investigators from secretly searching graft suspects' bank accounts and premises moves to the Supreme Court. Quite an issue right there in terms of the corridors of justice. We'll be looking at that also shortly. Front page of the Daily Nation. Battle to save Mau Water Tower begins. As politicians postured over the impending second phase of evictions, some families started moving out of the area following the deployment of government forces. Started yesterday, government said it's going to take a week to get it done. And some people just seeing the writing written on the wall and by so doing just deciding to move. Move on to the Star. Front page of the Star. Mau. MPs tell Uhuru to give evictees land. State pushes plan to flush out forest settlers and save water tower. But Rift leaders say Kenyatta should donate family property to squatters. That's the front page as far as the Star is concerned. Then we move on now to the Business Daily. Front page of the Business Daily, relief for consumers as KRA suspends new tax. Manufacturers of bottled water, soft drinks and cosmetics also spared these high costs. That's the front page of your Business Daily. We'll be looking at these big stories, of course, throughout our newspaper review this morning. And then let me now turn to my panel that's in place and ready to jump into the big stories of the day. Of course, political analyst and governance expert Dennis Tumbi, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the show.
Asante.
Executive Director, East Africa Center for Law and Justice. Join Diva, welcome back.
Asante
Karibu
sana.
sana.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start things off. Matters Politics, front page of the People Daily, as you can see right there. It almost seems like with the Kenyan election cycle, as soon as we are done with this election, we start campaigning for the next. Work will sort itself out in the middle.
Yeah.
So it seems. And as you can see, Mount Kenya region, 2022 political bride. And the dynamics of this particular region have shifted somewhat. Now seeing that some people who wouldn't have thought of making forays into the region are doing that and being embraced with open arms. We talk about former Premier Raila Odinga. To the extent that Anne Waiguru is saying that now in 2022, we need to factor the weight of this person coming in because he brings in a support base of around half of the country. So we are looking at him also as somebody who we need to embrace in our political future. Join Divo looking at this, and the person saying this is a person who was hounded out of office on allegations of graft by this same former premier.
Yes.
What's going on in this space?
They're even in court of allegations of
NYS1.
defamation.
Yes.
NYS1.
I mean,
yeah, we are hugging.
it just goes to cement the notion that there are no permanent enemies in politics. I mean, politics is not about creating friendships, it's about interests.
Right.
And as long as your interests align,
We are
then
friends.
you are friends. The moment they are out of sync, out of work, then you have this. And that's what we're seeing also with this particular headline.
Right.
When they talk about a region as a bride, I mean, it's like a prize. You know, if you're really good, you win this.
Right.
And for me, it's actually a misfortune. And I wish our media houses would lead in just killing that narrative of, like we even you saw in Kibera, when they immediately decided the numbers, it was Luyas are so much and Luos are so much. We really need to get out of that mindset because where we are headed, with the generation that's coming up, the millennials, these guys are still not yet as tribalized as our generation is.
Right.
We want to kill tribalism.
Right.
This is not the way to do it.
And even as we talk about killing tribalism, because some people asked when it comes to like the census and that tribal question.
You asked about ethnicity.
Why? As in, as long as I'm a Kenyan and I have an ID, whether I am Luya or Giek, Kikuyu, does it matter? As long as I'm a Kenyan ID, why are we still going down the... Okay, so fine, join Nivo. What's your tribe? Yet you want to kill tribalism. How do we, if it starts from that particular level, how do you get rid of it? That's a big question.
The problem is, in Kenya, when you're organizing for politics, tribe is the lowest common denominator. It's the easiest thing to whip up. And when you hear what Ms. Waiguru was saying, Yeah. Oh yeah, now she's Weganjo. She better do a formal name change.
Weganjo did. He paid for dowry, so we better.
So. But what she was alluding to was, you know, our numbers plus their numbers, we need to work together.
Right.
If you think about it, that's what has brought us to where we are in terms of even a leadership of big tribes versus small tribes. When you talk like that, there's some other of the smaller tribes that are looking and thinking, when will we ever become anybody's bride? When will we be actually good enough to be wooed or to become suitors? And that's why I'm saying this is something I wish the media would also stop giving so much capitalism. But the point cannot be lost.
Right.
That when we're looking at politics, it is a game of numbers.
Right.
It is a game of influence. And if you have influence in a certain area, then you actually have a potential of surmounting the coming elections. And it's true in 2022, because this time there's no clear Kikuyu front runner to be president, then Kikuyus are the tribe to now woo. It's not the Luya nation or the Luo nation. So in terms of practicalities as Kenyans, it's true. If you want to win the next election, Central is the prize. That is why you need to win our hearts.
Okay, Dennis, I'll bring you in on this one as well, because we've spoken about this. Joe has also spoken about the fact that it seems like when it comes to the game of numbers, the best way to get these numbers and group them together is tribe. So as you look at this right now, is this the prize?
You know, certainly one of the things that, you know, I think it's best that we clarify is that it's not good that we kill tribal, you know, tribes. I think the thing that we have to go for is negative ethnicity. Is where one tribe feels much more entitled than the other. And it is where one tribe undermines the other. And it is where actually mobilization, even around resources and power, then center around tribalism. I think that's the thing that we must critically kill. Because even when you look at some of the proposals that BBI is alluding, they say that we have 5 largest warring tribes. So let's give them the presidency and the premiership and the executive. And then the rest basically can go to hell or dig whatever it is that there is. So that kind of negative mobilization and negative ethnicity is the thing that we must do away with. And of course, the thing about census is about power, is about numbers and resources based on regions and locality and thereabout. So I think the thing about tribe really is hard to negate because we are born and birthed from tribes. It's almost impossible to have that we can have a tribeless nation. Then we don't have the ethos that guide us from where we come from. And we cannot negate our roots. But, you know, coming back to the question that you asked and, you know, about Mount Kenya region and being political bride, I think for me the tragedy that I look at is I really sympathize with the president. Because the president, based on a legacy, the way you define a legacy is how fast does a politician lose significance upon leaving office. And we are seeing that in Mount Kenya region, the president is already somewhat losing significance.
While still in office.
While still in office. And that's a tragedy. If you look at what I call the hard and the soft legacy of his, you know, because when we remember Kibaki, his soft legacy is perhaps his funny jokes. Mavi ya kuku, you know, he would be addressing guys and the driver is driving us, na ule anaenda wapi ule kubafu. You know, and his hard legacy, perhaps the match that I can remember is perhaps Thika Road and thereabout. But how fast a politician loses significance, even while in office, because that is what Mount Kenya is looking at. You know, the likes of Anne Waiguru is looking at being the political leader in Mount Kenya and welcoming the likes of Raila and thereabout. And other people are jostling. Kionjori is getting in there. Somebody is getting in there because they are seeing that the president has no political future. Neither does he have any political capital to lead the region forward. And the only way that you can call somebody a bride is because they are single and unmarried. So really, when did President Kenyatta divorce Mount Kenya? Or is Mount Kenya still unmarried? Or thereabout, she's a single bride who is up for takes. So I think it's that solitude and lack of a clear leader and a patriot. Like the way Mr. Raila or the DP has a stronghold and a clear leadership strategy on their regions, then Central Province, unfortunately, is being called a bride. Even though we've seen their political leadership over the years, And the political kind of tribal leadership is something that we need to.
Let me jump in on that as well. When you say that, because let's use the the term that has been used here in terms of political bride.
Yes.
And the fact that Ruto was the one who was supposed to be the the suitor. After the last election happened, the suitor had already been put in place, and we knew who was coming home and bringing the cows in the dowry. But it seems like he's no longer the one who's
there was a child bride. It was those engagements that happened at bar. So it was like
arranged marriage.
Yes, it was an arranged marriage. Like, you know what, you kumi, me kumi, and we all big happy family. And now you're seeing that, well, somebody amekula mahari lakini anakula kwingine pia. But and that's why I was saying earlier, they're no permanent friends, they're no permanent enemies. Would we have foreseen 5 short years ago that the president and the deputy president would be where they are right now? But even more incredulous, would we have foreseen the president and Honorable Raila being where they are right now?
That was the shocker.
That was a big shocker. But the outcome of this, in my opinion, is also a little bit healthy. If everything was just, this is how it's going to go and there's not real competition, it would have been a little bit boring. This helps keep...
Spices things up.
No, in Kenya, politics is a national pastime. I mean, it's the thing we do. Around every corner, you hear politics. So when there's this mystery and this intrigue, we are kept engaged. But like you said, when that is happening, what's happening with work? Where is it going? And that's what Dennis was pointing out before about now this how the ministries are being directed. Okay, you do Big Four and you also do BBI and you also do... So that the politics of the day is affecting not even policy.
It's seeping into policy.
And when that happens now, like already we're saying Big Four was a little bit big to bite. And we're not going to achieve it because it looked like too much to do. That we needed to scale it down to a small 4, so that even in each pillar, we look for something we can achieve, not a mega project. But now add BBI to it, and it's 9 points.
Oh my goodness.
We'll be coming to that, of course, because it's the standard as well, and very many people wonder, okay, fine, the report even hasn't been tabled, yet it's becoming part of the executive's mandate. Yes, that's in the standard. We'll be jumping into that. Before we leave the People Daily, though, reinstated Sosion 6 truce with rivals right there. It's been quite a tumultuous period.
You see how humble Sosion was yesterday? He had no fight with anybody.
Very reconciliatory.
We could all work together, and I said, where? Men can be humbled.
And even as he seeks to, mend the fences and say that let's allow children to concentrate on the exams, the former acting Secretary General still going to court. So it seems like the battle yet isn't over. This is just a brief pause for them to regroup and re-strategize. I
mean, I sometimes, and Joy can help us, sometimes I wonder the mandate of the Labour Court, because NAT itself has a guiding constitution. And whether the opportunity of the court is to interpret that constitution or is to overrule the constitution that NAT has in place. Because then such court directives, I think they add fuel into the fire. As opposed to sort of bring in a mediatory approach to leadership wrangles. I mean, given the fact that, by the way, the worrying thing about NAT is that its revenue has been clipped by the CBC, and that is something that Sosion was very angry about. So it means that they'll be receiving lesser money, and at the end of the day, the key partners in the, if you look at ministry, if you look at TSC, there's no unity between them. And even if you look at then the many approaches they've said, we're going to strike, and the teachers don't follow suit. So you're looking at a dying union, and that's really dangerous for the protection of the rights of the workers. So the place of the judiciary in terms of resolving disputes within associations and the employment sector, I think it's something that we need to look at. And of course, I'm trying to go back to law school myself, but Joy, of course, is an experienced lawyer. But the truth of the matter, I think there's an explanation on that.
I'm waiting to give him the explanation.
So because as had been put there, the union's constitution was saying that if they meet, wherever they decide to meet and decide that we're going to oust Sosion, that is as good as law. Even after the court said, let us not have this particular meeting, point in time, yet they went ahead. Registrar of Trade Unions actually received the changes from that particular meeting. So people sat and wondered, okay, fine, what takes precedence over the other? The court, the union, the Registrar of Trade Unions, the constitution from the union. Where do we get guidance for this particular case room?
Okay, when somebody goes to court and they're quote-unquote reinstated, sometimes the reporting is what is erroneous.
Right.
What courts do, they tell you, you know what, let's maintain status quo for a little bit while we sort these things out. And usually what that does, it's interpreted as reinstatement, but actually it's just hitting it's like a ref blowing the whistle and saying, you know what, everybody hush up, go back to where you were day before yesterday, let's sort it out from there.
Right.
And that's why you've seen several things leading up to this. Sossion being removed from the TSC role. What you talked about, the TSC refusing to now be an agent for KNUT. These things have been leading up to Sossion. And if I was Honorable Sossion, I should have smelt the coffee a long time ago.
Right.
When you're nominated by an opposition party or a minority party, and you're working with government in such a strong position as Secretary General of NAT, you need to take from your predecessors, like Rehemu Ambrose. You have to have that, there has to be that balance where you dance with the government sometimes and you give you are hard sometimes. And that's what he did not have. He was always against it. Even this third time, they were supposed to have gone on strike because of CBC. This CBC will not implement it. And he was always going against government. And that, for me, spelled doom for him. Unfortunately, in trying to deal with Sossion one person, the government is killing the entire institution.
That's true.
So by TSC refusing to be an agent for KNUT, for example, it means now KNUT has to look for enough people to be going around every school to collect 100 bob from all the teachers.
Imagine.
Every month. And at the end of the day, what that does, I agree with Dennis, it kills trade unionism. You can look at Kuppet and say, maybe it's an alternative. But right now, teachers in Kenya were in such a worse position just 10 short years ago. What they've managed